Welcome to the latest edition of The Blend. My name is Steve Benz. Welcome aboard. I've got a great new artist. Her name is Kimberly Dawn. She is a Canadian country singer. People are going, say what? Yes, indeed. Kimberly, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Now, sometimes here in America, we'll say they go country and they go Canadian and they get very confused. Explain that to me. How did you get into country music?
So I grew up actually on a farm in Alberta, Canada. So country music was pretty big up there.
Mhm.
The country radio stations, and so I grew up listening to country. But really, to be honest with you, I don't think I really listened to country and got into country till I was like in my later teens.
Oh, well, that's okay. There's
I
nothing wrong with,
discovered I discovered Garth Brooks.
well,
There you go.
nothing more needs to be said. So before that, you were singing Spice Girl songs?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I loved I sang everything, but I was definitely more pop. And to be
Uh,
honest with you, I was doing pop music actually before I jumped into the country realm.
Okay.
So country is really what I wanted to do, but when I moved out to the States, I was living in LA and I'm still here. I go back and forth from Nashville
Right.
and Los Angeles, but when I was in LA, all the producers said, if you really want to do country, you need to go to Nashville.
Sure.
And so it was like, so I was doing pop, and I finally, about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, I decided, you know what, I'm doing it. This is what I want to do. I was already writing songs and doing all of that. And I always say, I can turn any song into a country song if you're writing, you know?
That's true. That's very, very, very true. Let's use Shania Twain as a great example from the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay. Very country, but very pop at the same time. A couple of changes here and there. You got country, you got pop, you got pop, you got country. Same with Taylor Swift. So,
Yeah. And Shania Twain, I would say, was the first country artist that really did that kind of crossover,
sure.
that country pop kind of crossover. Then you got Faith Hill. So I mean, I think it's kind of, you can kind of go back and forth with that. And so, it's worked for me. I feel very comfortable in the country lane. That's really what I wanted to be doing. And I was in the pop world, but
Mhm.
loving the country world.
So who are your influences then? So if you're in between the two, who influenced you where you are now?
You know what? I definitely have kept some of my pop sound
Okay.
because that's part of like who I am, but I love there's specific country sounds that I love. Like I love a slide guitar.
Okay.
I love it, I love the sound of it. I'm all about storytelling anyway, and even in my pop songs, it was all a story. So that hasn't changed for me because growing up, I used to like to write poems and write stories, and so I've always been writing. So for me, I think that's why it's been easier for me to kind of cross over to the country world because I already was writing
Mhm.
and telling stories. And I feel like country music is a lot about telling a story.
So who'd you want to be when you were a kid? So if you're sitting there playing guitar or growing up, where like who were you singing into that hairbrush?
Okay, I was a lot of people. I was Whitney Houston. I was um let's see. I loved Shania Twain too, by the way. She was one of my favorites.
Mhm.
I would say she influenced me a lot. Faith Hill influenced me a lot. Um, you know, but yeah, I mean, like I got to tell you, I was a huge Whitney Houston fan. I loved Whitney Houston. She was who I was singing in my hairbrush to, thinking, "Wow, I want to be Whitney Houston." You know,
Those are some
and
tough notes, man. Those are some tough notes for
yeah,
Whitney
she's
Houston.
also, and by the way, she was also a gospel singer, and I grew up singing in church. So, that's kind of where I fell in love with music, is really singing in church. So and Dolly Parton, by the way,
Hmm.
I still love Dolly Parton. You go back, I've been listening to a lot of her old music, and it's like, oh my gosh, Dolly wrote that. That was her song. So,
Right. Well, maybe you could do a cover of her song with, was it Kenny Rogers? Like every American knows that song.
like Islands in the Stream.
Right. Like everybody, as bad as we all say, no, I'm heavy metal, I'm this, right. You turn that on, everyone's singing along. I don't know why.
Yep, you're right. You're 100% right.
I don't know why. Now, I did see one little tidbit that we have, that there's something between us. So we're going to lock here. I hear that you are one of seven.
Close, one of eight.
Okay, I'm one of seven. So which one are you in the order?
Number three.
All right, so that means you're one of the bossy ones. Okay, I'm just kidding.
No, you got
So
to take care of the little ones. What number were you?
I am the middle of seven, so I am the trouble person.
You are the trouble.
I am. I am, for me, I am the perfect middle of the oldest and the youngest. So if you were to mesh both personalities together, you would get me.
Funny.
It's
That's
funny.
But
So
from large families, that's amazing.
it is. Certainly in today's environment, you don't hear about big families. I grew up around a lot of big families. Did you do the same?
I did actually. I think most people had at least three
Mhm.
or more kids. And to be honest with you, because I grew up in such a small town,
Mhm.
I feel like everybody had like five kids or more. There was just a lot of, it was very rare to meet someone who was an only child.
Isn't that the truth? Like our family, we were the smallest family. There were 16, there were 12, there were 11 all around us. We were a small family with only seven.
And where did you grow up?
Just the suburbs of Chicago.
Wow,
Lived out in Los Angeles forever. So people would look at me like, you're crazy, seven kids, you're crazy. And then it was perfect for, acting and being on air
for sure.
because I'm essentially just talking to my brothers and sisters. That's all I'm doing.
Exactly.
Not
They're our audience. That was me with singing and doing all my stuff too.
So how
So
did your family influence you? So you're sitting there, are you singing to your family in church? Is that what
I
went on?
was singing in church, but I loved watching musicals. So growing up, I mean, my mom was a huge fan of like any Elvis Presley. So that's a perfect example. I grew up listening to Elvis Presley because that's what my mom listened to, and she loved Elvis, and she would always put on Elvis movies. So for me, it was like the movies I watched were all these actors singing and playing, and so that's what I grew up with. So that's kind of I don't know, I was attracted to that, I started playing piano when I was really young. My parents put me in piano lessons. I loved it. I didn't But with one of 8 kids, that didn't last very long because it's expensive and there's a lot of kids, and you know what I'm saying, to try to stay on top of that was hard. So I just always knew that this is kind of where I wanted to be. I just knew it from a very honestly from the age of probably 4 years old. I was like, that I'm going to do that. And everybody always reminds me that I always said that, which is funny.
And of course, family always puts that in front of you. Remember when? I
Yeah.
remember the dates. That's what it's like being. So what is the age difference of the oldest to the youngest of your 8?
I think it's 11 years.
See, that's not bad. Mine's 9. So, and it's funny how we kind of all get together. And when my family gets together, we're all really loud. I'm sure your family is just the same.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And all the girls came first, so it was 5 girls, and then my dad got his 3 boys.
Oh my God. Oh, Dad, your poor father. Your poor father.
I know, right? Right.
Well, our family was the 2 girls came first and then 5 boys. And, women just, we can't win. No, I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. Now, with that, which I thought was really interesting, is you're in your 20s, you're already a mom, you're doing all this, and then you start your country singing career.
Yeah, so I when I moved out to LA, I was singing and acting actually. I
Mhm.
was doing both. Got married, started, having my family, and I always knew I wanted to be a mom.
Mhm.
Um, but I hit 30 and I had 4 kids. And I was like, I was happy being a mom, and don't get me wrong, and I still love being a mom. But I was like, but I was somebody before I was married. I was
Mhm.
somebody before I was a mom, and I kind of went through this like, kind of like a struggle and trying to figure out like, what do I want to do with myself too, other than just being the mom, you
Mhm.
know? And so I kind of did some soul searching, and I'm like, acting was totally out of it. I was like, I have no interest in doing the acting anymore. But I was like, music is what brings me joy. And so I jumped back into it. So I started taking piano lessons again, but really like jumping into piano lessons and really doing it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start fresh. Started taking piano lessons, started writing, and recording songs. And so it just kind of all kind of came together. And I say it came together. Listen, it's been years of like, it's struggle, you guys. It's not like it happened overnight. It's been, a lot of hard work and a lot of like mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, and it's a tough business. The entertainment world is a tough world, and it's a tough business. And you have to really have thick skin. And people used to say that to me all the time. And I'm like, oh, whatever, it's fine. It's true though. You have to have thick skin because it's so easy to just say, forget it. I don't want to do this anymore. But when you have a passion for it and you love it so much, there's nothing that's going to keep you from doing what you want to do.
I would certainly think that if you came to Los Angeles and you didn't have kids or anything at 20, perhaps you don't survive, because at 20, you're not grounded. The 20 somethings that I met all the years I lived in Los Angeles had stars in their eyes. Everyone was going to be a star, if you had talent or not. And to try to do it at 30, I think you're well grounded. You actually can identify, you have a support already there with a family. So you could always leave the business part. Everyone does forget that this is a business. And unless you're crossing the T's and everything else, even what it is that I do, stations change format all the time. And I could be out of a job with the snap of a finger. But because I didn't say I started later, but I was able to dig in and I got the support group just like you do. So it's probably to your advantage that you started a few years later than the norm.
Right. And listen, I've had so many people say, well, you kind of did it backwards. And I had that in my mindset for a long time. Like, did I do this backwards? I should, and then I'm like, you know what? No, who's to say there's a right or wrong way to go about this? I watched a documentary a couple weeks ago with Garth Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Garth had already made it. He was like very successful, but he left the business for 14 years to raise his girls.
Right.
And people,
Right.
it's like he was already huge. And he said he went to Oklahoma, he raised his girls, he did that. So I just don't feel like there's any right or wrong way to decide when you're going to do something that you're passionate about and really put your all into it.
Oh, reinvent yourself. Keep reinventing yourself. Even with what's happened the past year, I've told most people, well, here's your time to reset. Whatever it is and whoever it is you are, you get to reset and start over, essentially start over. So,
It's true.
although starting later is a good song. So I want credit. So in case, you throw that in there.
And I tell you, it is a good song. And I listen to when people say things to me and those ideas pop in my head. And I've written songs like on the spot. Like, I'm like, oh, that's a great song idea.
Right. You start writing it down and just like, hey, I want some cred. Right now, I'm just telling you right. No, I'm just kidding.
Got it.
No one cares. And I heard you playing piano and things of that sort. I tried that. My older sister tried to teach me. She stuck me with a fork because she thought I was done. She's like, enough. I can't do it with you anymore. So
Sounds like something an older sister would do.
yes. And then the other one was egging her on. That's how my sisters were. But it's okay. It's fun though. It's fun. So tell me a little bit about some of the songs or that you've just written or that just came out.
So last year, right actually before this pandemic, I recorded an album.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up releasing a song in February called Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I released it right before the pandemic hit. It actually came out like right as the tornadoes actually hit Middle Tennessee. So it came out. I was supposed to head out to Nashville to kind of promote it. And I had some shows lined up. Pandemic hit.
Ugh.
I said, okay, everything shut down. Again, you got to reinvent, right? And figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started doing a ton of interviews, going on Instagram, doing live shows, just kind of, and on Facebook. I've been doing a lot of virtual shows. So Nashville came out in February, and then I released another single in September called 93. And very nostalgic, kind of brought me back to the 90s where I love 90s country music. That's where I fell in love with country music, is that 90s country music, that sound. So that's what that song was about. And so that came out in September, and it's been great. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. It's playing right now on up in Canada. So it's getting some play up there in Canada right now, which I'm very excited about.
That's got a lot of heavy rotation. I listened to 93 before you came on a couple of times, and I was having all my flashbacks of how I dressed in.
Oh,
Okay.
I love it.
I was in Los Angeles with my big hair. You know what? I was Billy Ray before Billy Ray was Billy Ray. I had the big mullet and things like that. I'm proud of
Really, really
that. I'm proud of that.
good.
So if
Proud
you
of it.
don't mind, I know people don't want to hear me or see me. They want to hear you sing. How about playing something for us?
I would love to. Why don't I play my latest single right now?
Fantastic.
You know, I wish I had a time machine. Instead of staring at this iPhone screen, take me back to another day, another time, another place. Friday nights at the Texaco, meet there, then we hit the road. Pull over when we find a spot, empty parking lot, maybe smoke some pot, or not. Give me some of that 93, give me some of that wild and free. We measure time by the radio, when you gotta get home to watch your favorite show and get back to the simple things. I can hear that old telephone ring, it's calling me back to Polaroids and throwing on old corduroys. And I don't know about you, where you wanna be, but I miss me in 93. These days keep wearing me out, all this noise is a bit too loud. Wanna get a little out of touch, unplug and just get a 90s rushing. Give me some of that 93, give me some of that wild and free. We measure time by the radio, when you gotta get home to watch your favorite show and get back to the simple things. I can hear that old telephone ring, it's calling me back to Polaroids and throwing on old corduroys. And I don't know about you, where you wanna be, but I miss me in 93. Maybe you're a hippie from the 60s, or a baby of the 80s, I'm sure you can relate. So let's put on that mixtape and go back to the good old days. Give me some of that 93, give me some of that wild and free. We measure time by the radio, when you gotta get home to watch your favorite show and get back to the simple things. I can hear that old telephone ring, it's calling me back to Polaroids and throwing on old corduroys. And I don't know about you, where you wanna be, I don't know about you, where you wanna be, but I miss me in 93. Me in 93.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Kimberly, thank you so much for being on the show. Everybody, get out there and follow her. Go to officialkimberlydawn.com. Follow her on all social media. Kimberly, you're welcome back on the show anytime.
Thank you so much for having me. You're a doll.
All right, take care now.
Thank you too. Bye.